Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK and WFPK.org, Consequence, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks as always for making your way here for checking out the series. You know what to do. If you like what you see, what you hear, hit that subscribe button. I put out 3 new interviews every single week, so it's a great way to keep up with all of your favorite artists. And I got to say, one of my all-time favorites, I'm so excited to have him here, Jerry Cantrell. He's got a new solo record called I Want Blood. Hello.
What's happening, man?
It's great to have you on here. It's great to have new music from you anytime. This record is as powerful as ever, and that's not an easy feat this far into anybody's career. So the congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's always a challenge, and it's a big commitment when you kind of make that choice to get into a creative mode. And if you're going to take it all the way to making an album and then touring that album, it's about a 3-year window that you're committing to start. So you don't do that lightly. I'm lucky to be able to have been doing this for a long time, and it's always a challenge. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of ups and downs. It takes a lot of focus and commitment. And when you come out the other side of it with a record like I Want Blood, it makes it all worth it. You can just put that right in line with any record that I've been involved with my whole career, whether it's with Alice or on my own. I'm really proud of it.
It's interesting, when you say, you make that choice to jump in, because I know, when you're an artist, to a certain degree, there's no choice, right? Like you create, music happens. To as you're saying, make the choice to kind of to jump in and figure out what it's going to be. I think there's the quote out there. It's probably the press release or something, where you say there is a confidence to this record. Like obviously, you know what you're doing at this point. Like,
Yeah.
what makes it different? What makes this more confident than you might have been in the past?
I mean, I don't think you can really judge that statement like I'm more confident now than I ever was. It's just the continuation of the process. It's just another leg in the journey. So you don't know how many. Life is impermanent, so you don't know how long you have. Nobody does, and so living in the now and in the moment is really the way to go about it. And the more you can stay there, the better things seem to be. So. Making an album, it's always you've got the experience of having done it before, so I know how to do this. Obviously, I should be able to make another record, but I never start with some sort of preconceived idea of what it's going to be. It's just that, okay, I'm feeling like I want to create now that I'm in a good space and I've got enough little bits and pieces of material that I'm kind of inspired by. So let's just jump in there and see what this thing starts taking shape as, or what it looks like. And so it's always interesting. I never have any idea what it's going to be when I start, and I'm always surprised by where I end up. The cool part is you can always rely on your musical fingerprint being there. So you've got the freedom to go wherever you want. Also, I'm part of a band that's got a tradition of traveling a lot of spaces musically, and we did it very early on in our career. So we went from Facelift to Sap to Dirt to Jar of Flies. Couldn't be any more different than those 4 records. And so, uh, uh, you know, uh, the goal is to make a record that you have never made before, but also not to be too far from what people might recognize as being you. So.
That's an interesting line to kind of have to walk right there too. Like because that's right, right? Like you want what fans probably expect, and I've asked it like I was thinking of like two other interviews, like one with Sting and one with Johnny Marr. Johnny Marr has that too. Like every album that he does, there's probably going to be at least one song on there. He's like, all right, this one's for the people who want me to sound like, the Smiths or something like that. And Sting said, yeah, the same thing. I said, the rock songs on your albums. I was like, is that easy? And he goes, yeah, that's easy. I know what they want. I can
Yeah,
just, you
sure.
still got to figure it out, but to a certain degree, like that's in you. That's are those fingerprints you're talking about?
Well, I mean, for me, I get what you're relaying with those two guys, and but I guess I think of it a little bit differently. I'm confident in the fact that I'm always going to be here. I can only be me. So being me, whether it's on my own on a record like I Want Blood, or whether I'm part of the collective of Alice in Chains, we can't be anything other than that band, and I can't be anything more than myself in that band or outside that band. So I carry that wherever I go, so I can have the confidence to know that I'm going to sound like me if I if I do something. Now, I've been fortunate to have a pretty long and successful career, and made music that has touched a lot of people, that people care about, and so I know that's there. As long as I'm satisfying myself and doing something that makes me feel like I'm excited about it, there's a pretty good chance that a good portion of those people are going to relate to that as well. So I never write a song intent with the intent of what a fan may want, or what you want to hear. I'm making what I want to hear, and conversely, using myself as my own UV meter. If I'm digging it and people have dug stuff that I've done or been involved with in the past, there's probably a good shot that a good chunk of them might like this too. So as long as I'm satisfied, a lot of people usually come along for the ride, and I've been really, really lucky up to this point for that to be the case. So
Yeah.
that's a good feeling.
Yeah, I was taking one of your song titles completely out of context when I was looking at "Throw Me a Line," just in the context that we're talking about it. But even with it, that in that song, I mean, that riff, like that's a great song outright. That riff, it almost feels you make it sound very easy. And I'm trying
Yeah,
not to say that as some kind of backhanded compliment or
yeah.
something like that.
No,
You
it
know, it's like
is.
you make it sound very
Yeah.
easy.
It's a repetitive, cool groove, man. And
Yeah.
like the best part of that song is when the re-intro happens and the groove comes back. So
Yeah.
like the chorus is great, the bridge is cool, the solo section's awesome, but what the real payoff is just the main intro riff. It's a good riff.
And when you got a good riff, that takes
Yeah,
care of a lot of the work right there.
it sure does. It sure does.
Yeah. This is your solo work, but you still like to work with a lot of the same people. I mean, you've got Duff
I
and
do.
Robert on here, which, been in the past. I think Greg's doing some of the vocals.
Gil
Like,
Sharon played on the last record. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So, in that sense, does this still feel like a band in any way in comparison to
yeah.
Alice?
It's always a band. It's always a collective. So uh, the term solo record is really a misnomer. You know what I mean? Because I'm not doing anything on my own. You know what I mean? I might have an idea and be maybe the captain of the ship, so to speak. But it takes a team to be able to get anywhere. You know what I mean? So uh, it requires group work and a collective and hanging out and jamming and good vibes. And so uh, Alice in Chains has always been a band of friends before we were ever a band of musicians. So uh, that comes first and foremost. So that's how I like to operate. I like working with people that I care about deeply and have had long relationships, and I like working with people at the top of their game and bands that I admire as a fan. I've been really fortunate to have that all come together, and have people keep reappearing on my records, and on the flip side of that coin, when they call, I'm on their records too. I've done a couple of Duff's records. I've jammed with Mike and Robert on with Ozzy, and we've done a lot of collaborative stuff both ways, and it's fun.
Yeah. And especially for fan like me, like we're talking all-star players here, and to hear, as they say, the recipe, the soup that, these artists make, like
Yeah.
you can hear Robert's style
Yep.
blending with Duff's style, and it's all
Yep.
there. Like you can pick it apart, but
It's
hearing how that
indelible.
works, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. It's a really unique thing. When of course it's my record, and I wrote this material and composed it in a certain way to be performed a certain way, but everybody has their own identity and their own flavor, like we were just discussing, and that's always going to come through. So the interesting part is following the blueprint and the recipe, but also leaving enough room for everybody to add their own parts and come up with new stuff, and just the size of their sound and their personality that just bleeds through. It's amazing to me that both things can be satisfied at once. You know it's Duff playing bass, you know it's Borden playing drums, it's Trujillo or Gil. They're very identifiable, but it still sounds like a consistent piece of work from me, and so that's the goal that you're trying to go for when you lend yourself to a project. Say on the other with when I was working with Duff, I'm trying to satisfy what he wants, and I'm trying to bring in his vision, and all of these great players that we've been talking about, they've lent themselves to trying to bring in a record, kind of in the vein of what I want to do, and it's cool,
Yeah.
the records would not be what they are without them. They wouldn't have the weight, that extra little spice of weight. It's the intangible stuff. Uh, and then it's just the life stuff too, that you've got to make music with your friends, so that's the main thing.
The best thing. I mean, you get to have this as a job. We get to do this
Yeah.
as a job,
Yeah. That's a self-created job, man. It's pretty cool.
It's not bad. Why do you, so you got to work with Tyler Bates again too, on Echoes of Laughter on here. What is it about what you all make that brought you back to that relationship?
Yeah, I fully intended, Tyler and I started this process when I started the demo. We were just going to kind of reassemble the team, and at least the creative team of he and I kind of producing, and then fill in the blanks of the musicians as we went. But he was already committed to a couple other projects, another album, and he was doing a couple of movies. He's a really he operates at a pretty high level. He's doing TV shows, he's doing movies, he's producing other bands, and plus working on his own material. So, but it started to be apparent early on in the process that he wasn't going to be as involved on just of time availability,
Right.
as the last record. So that's when I called up Joe, who had mixed the last record, and asked him if he would be my shotgun rider on the wagon through the wilderness to make this record. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm in." So, but Tyler was still really, we live in the same neighborhood. We're buddies, and he always gives me great ideas, and I would pop over to his place, or he'd come over to the house and see where we were at in the demo process, and give notes, and on arrangements, cool ideas. Some, when I got stuck, kind of help push me, and we do that for each other. So Echoes of Laughter is a really beautiful tune. He came over, and he had toured with me on that record as well on Brighton. So not only did he co-produce the record with me, he was part of the band. So he came out and toured with me for all of that. And you spend enough time together, there's like certain riffs that you hear people coming back to, and I do that too. And when that's the case, you record them, or at least get them down. Like, this is wanting to be heard. And I'd heard him playing that figure for about 2 years. I'm like, we should do something with that, because you keep playing that every time you pick up the guitar around me. At some point in the day, you'll get back to that little thing. And he's like, all right. So we hit record, and he started playing, and he kept trying to pass the guitar off to me as he was going through changes, and we were kind of constructing it. And I'm like, man, just keep going. You're doing great. I don't want to touch it. So we basically got the music all done. And, I added a few things to it, here and there in the middle section. And then I wrote some lyrics kind of on the spot. That chorus line was just off the top of my head. It was just free association thinking, but it was kind of cool. I ran all night to find an answer. You went away. And I just started singing that off the top of my head, and that's how the song came to be. Just kind of sitting in a room, a couple of guys with a couple of guitars, and just making up a pretty cool journey of a song.
Yeah. When they're gifted like that, that's and is that remind Greg singing on there as well, right? On that
Yeah,
track?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think Lola's on that too. Lola Collette.
Yeah, but Greg, I mean, I don't maybe sometimes he hits this mood or whatever, but something about there are moments when he sounds like Chris Cornell
Yeah,
in
he's got a little
song.
Chris in him. Sure,
Yeah.
as well as a lot of other artists. We all have our influences that bleed through.
Hmm.
That's a pretty good influence to have.
That's
Yeah.
a pretty good influence to have. It made me actually go back. Of course, I listened to Right Turn, the Alice
Oh
song
yeah,
from the
yeah,
Alice Mud Garden, I believe is
yeah,
what
yeah,
that just what a cool little again, we're talking about the all-star teams getting together, like
yeah.
those happen. It's incredible. That
Yep.
track.
Yeah,
Uh,
when Cornell really lays into it at the end of that song. It raises the hair on the back of your neck. You know, great talent,
Yeah.
awesome human being. Miss the hell out of him.
Yeah, same. Absolute magic that happens there. When you've got, and I know that song's an anomaly that really couldn't be represented, but it's also one of those things that got me thinking, like, Get Born Again, one of my favorite compositions, but lives in very much a little, it seems to live anywhere in just this little silo of a moment.
Yeah.
As an artist, and I've asked a few people this lately, like, do you feel any need that just because it's recorded that it has to be represented live in a certain way ever?
You know, it's always interesting. Somebody's always going to bitch, and so you know, like, why don't you play this? Why don't you play
Uh-huh.
that? Blah, blah, blah. Hey, dude, I've got 55 minutes tonight, and I've got 35 years worth of songs, including my new record. I mean, what do you want me to do?
Yeah,
You know?
right.
Yeah, there, you know, there's some songs that the 98% of people here want to hear tonight, and I'm trying to serve all eras and different records, and
Mhm.
and also play the songs that probably collectively most people want to hear. Unfortunately, I've written some of those, and so I include those in the set, and we change stuff around a lot too. But it's just tough, you know. I mean, even on a headline show, we're never playing more than 2 hours a night, you know. Like uh, I don't have the stamina to pull that off, you know. So it's about 2 hours is about max, and
Right.
so you know what is that? That's 22 songs, you know. It's not that much, you know, and uh, you know, there's another part of performance too. Like, you know, you have to get in shape to be able to perform some of these pieces of music, and you can't just keep throw stuff in if you know all the time, unless you're kind of prepared and you want to do the best version you can, and at least try to be consistent with it. So if you're changing set lists around to please a bunch of people, you might not be performing them at the best quality that you feel like you want to do it. And the whole deal is you're coming to see a live show. My job is to try to do it as consistently and do a good a job as I can representing the material live in the moment, and having fun with people. But you know, on set list, I serve myself, and I think I've got a pretty good idea what people might want to hear, and I'm also going to do what I want to do as well, and you know, over time, if you see a couple of shows, you probably get to see a lot of stuff, but songs will fall through the cracks. I mean, that's a lot of material to like you said, like Get Born Again, like, you know, we don't play that, but you know, I don't think we've ever played it live, but those were just two studio songs that we did, and for the box set, and unfortunately, I think they were the last two songs we ever recorded together. So, uh, uh, you know, I mean,
But songs can just live in the studio. I mean, that's
there's nothing wrong with that. Most, you know, a lot of bands, and you know, from the Beatles on to you talking to me here, there's a lot of songs that don't get performed. There's also songs that are kind of built to kind of be a studio piece, you
Mhm.
know, like with orchestra and all sorts of stuff like that. You can't travel around with a with a philharmonic to be able to, you know, pull that off. I mean, I Stay Away as a song that people always, you know, I often hear complaints that we don't play, but that's, you know, that's with it's with an orchestra, you know,
Mhm.
so, you know, it's kind of tough to pull that off live unless you're gonna, you know, I guess get a keyboard player to do it or whatever. But
Keyboards and five EBOs. You know, that's
yeah, I mean, you know, which can happen. I've got a great keyboard player right now, Lola Collette. She's really talented. You know, she's a
Mhm.
guitar player and a bass player and a singer as well. But we could do that. But Alice has never really wanted to operate with any extra players. It's just the four guys on the field. So we're kind of limited to what we could do with four bodies and, you know, two singers and two guitar players. That's it. So
Still do it well, very,
thank you.
very well, all of you. And what's also noticeable on this record too, as we're talking about just having a long career, that also means getting older. That doesn't mean getting softer. Like you're still playing as heavy as you ever have.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you can pinpoint that still drives you towards that music? And again, we've talked about this. You guys, I Stay Awake. You know, that range has been there
Yeah.
forever. But this is a very heavy record,
Yeah.
almost solidly.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, you know, I don't think it should be that big of a surprise if you've been listening to anything I've done since 1990. You know, you like like we mentioned earlier in this interview, you know, you got facelift, you got sap, you got dirt, you got jar of fly. So I can and will travel any bit of that territory, and it is all something that I plant my flag in, and I can be any of that, inside Alice or outside. So as far as territory, we were also talking about being surprised about a piece of work. I didn't go in saying I'm going to make a heavy record. It just turned out to be a heavy record. So I guess that was an itch that needed to be scratched. It's more of an unconscious, or not an unconscious, more of a subconscious thing, I guess, and just kind of going with the flow. That's why you get a record like Brighton, followed by I Want Blood. And then what was before Brighton, Degradation Trip and Boggy Depot. Those are four completely different records, you know, but it's all me, you know.
So good. And I mean that. This record is so good. And I'll end, I mean, the same way I started. The fact that you're still able to do that. And I can say that about a few of my, you know, like, geez,
Sure.
Pearl Jam put out a record this year too. It's one of their
Yeah.
best albums, you know, they've ever
Yeah.
put out. It's like, this doesn't need to happen. And yet, you know, here it is.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, that's
Yeah.
incredible. It really
Yeah.
is.
Well, you know, all you can do is try. And I know what you're talking to, or, you know, and talking about. It's like, you know, it's tough to keep attention. It's tough to keep the focus together. It's a group of people who are in a business and in some ways married, and you know, it's a weird relationship. Bands, they're not meant to last, you know. And if you're going to have a career that spans decades, that's a lot of journeying and a lot of life experience of all the members, and whether you can keep operating at a high artistic level is a pretty slim chance, you know, that you can still be making great records, you know, in your third, fourth, or fifth decade. But it's possible, you know. So I'd like to think I'm still doing it, and you know, I'm glad that, you know, the Pearl Jam guys are still out there doing it, and they're still reaching for, you know, new heights. And I just saw them recently, and I've never heard them sound better. You know, they're an amazing band, and so that's inspiring. You know, it's again, you know, it's buddies of mine, and it's good to see them do well, and still be out there doing it. It's part of what keeps me going too. You know, other artists, you know. I just want to see how far this journey goes. It's going to end at some point, and while I feel like I'm still slugging homers, man, I'm going to keep swinging at the plate. You know.
Yeah, well, keep swinging. We'll keep listing this record. Absolutely, another home run. Seriously, Jerry, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about it too.
Cool, man.
And thanks to my guest. Also, thanks to you for checking out the episode in the series. Before you get out of here, hit that subscribe button. Again, you get 3 brand new interviews every single week. New one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at right here on YouTube, or of course anywhere in podcast land, including iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, NPR, or WFPK.org as well. A great way to keep up with your favorite artists and discover new ones as well. Then after that, actually head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. It's an hour full of song premieres, music news, anniversary spins, bonus interviews, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern at WFPK.org. Consequence has your music and film news. You can also find me on the social media spots, Facebook, Instagram, mostly on Twitter. All 3 of them, the address is at Kyle Meredith. Do hope you like and follow along. That does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.